Coming up on tonight's This Week in Politics.
That better not ever happen in South Dakota. It should never happen in South Dakota.
A renewed debate about the COVID-19 vaccine in South Dakota as case numbers again climb thanks to the Delta variant. In Washington, the work continues on a bipartisan infrastructure spending bill. Democrats say it's full speed ahead. Some Republicans, though, want to put on the brakes.
We need to give members who weren't a part of the bipartisan group a chance to weigh in. And that means making sure that we have a robust amendment process.
And making progress in Sioux Falls on where medical marijuana dispensaries might be located, but is it really progress?
What we're looking at here is a zoning ordinance that pushes all of the cannabis-related businesses to the outskirts of town.
The U.S. Senate Budget Committee working on a $3.5 trillion spending package. The chairman of that committee, Senator Bernie Sanders, joins me tonight.
For years and years and years, the Congress has paid attention to the 1% and their wealthy campaign contributors. Now it's time to pay attention to the needs of working families and our climate.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Brian Allen. Thank you for being with us this evening. We will begin with the resurgence of COVID-19 nationwide, the result of a 1-2 punch of a highly contagious Delta variant, and about a third of the nation that remains unvaccinated.
99.5% of the deaths due to COVID-19 are among unvaccinated people. And a very small, very, very small percentage are among vaccinated people.
Tyson Foods now requiring COVID-19 vaccines for all American employees. Workers at U.S. offices will need to be vaccinated by October 1st. Frontline employees have a November 1st deadline. Once fully vaccinated, employees will receive a $200 bonus. Senator Lindsey Graham announced Monday that he tested positive for COVID-19. The Republican from South Carolina, who is fully vaccinated, says he had, quote, flu-like symptoms over the weekend. A doctor confirmed Graham had the virus. Graham tweeted that he had mild symptoms and would quarantine for about 10 days. In Florida, an average of more than 17,000 new cases have been reported daily over the last 2 weeks. The governor there, Ron DeSantis, a possible 2024 Republican presidential candidate, says he has no plans on shutting anything down in the state.
These interventions have failed time and time again throughout this pandemic, not just in the United States, but abroad. They have not stopped the spread, and particularly with Delta, which is even more transmissible. If it didn't stop it before, it definitely ain't going to stop it now.
Also seen as a possible 2024 White House hopeful, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, though she denies she is running. Governor Noem says she will not issue any kind of mandate requiring anyone to get a COVID-19 vaccine. But despite that proclamation, some South Dakota Republicans say she is not going far enough. Austin Goss takes a look.
Noem has spoken often about her vaccine mandate ban, a popular position amongst members of her own party.
I think it's really important that we maintain the importance of the doctor-patient relationship when it comes to these situations, and that patients are able to choose the best medicine for their situation based on their conversation with their doctor.
However, Noem's tweet this weekend sent off a firestorm of criticism from within her own party, many of whom argued that Noem's executive order banning vaccine mandates did not go far enough. South Dakota's ban prevents state and local governments from requiring vaccinations, but state legislators have expressed interest in expanding that out.
That better not ever happen in South Dakota. It should never happen in South Dakota, and I think it's a proper role of government to make sure that people are protected in their autonomy, in their privacy, so that they can make those decisions for themselves.
Currently, a number of Republican-controlled states have gone much farther in their ban on vaccine mandates. In Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill that would ban requiring vaccines in state government and for entry into venues. Montana's state legislature made vaccine status a protected category, meaning it cannot necessarily be required at all. USD law professor Patrick Gary argues that certain variations of a vaccine passport ban, similar to Montana's law, could possibly be legal.
Can the legislature pass laws that put restrictions and requirements on employers? Yes, of course they do it all the time. And so I would say generally yes, but then you'd really have to know the exact parameters of the law to determine whether, they could do it in that particular situation.
Reached out to Governor Noem's office today to see if they would support legislation that enacted a more far-reaching vaccine mandate ban and did not receive a response. In the Peer Newsroom, Austin Goss, Dakota News Now.
Coming up next on This Week in Politics, progress being made in Washington on an infrastructure deal. But South Dakota Senator John Thune says lawmakers there need to pump the brakes. And Senator Bernie Sanders joins me to discuss a proposed $3.5 trillion spending plan and why he says it needs to happen. Welcome back to This Week in Politics here on KSFY.
For a long time, Americans asking us to deliver investments in infrastructure. Concurrently, they're asking us to restore their faith in our government. And this initiative, more than anything else I've seen so far in my brief tenure in Congress, delivers both.
That's Minnesota Congressman Dean Phillips saying there is bipartisan goodwill on a proposed $1 trillion infrastructure deal that would fix the nation's roads and bridges and other infrastructure priorities. But among some Senate Republicans, there is a feeling that the work to get this bill put together and approved is being done a little too quickly. Here's Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell.
Our full consideration of this bill must not be choked off by any artificial timetable that our Democratic colleagues may have penciled out for political purposes. Our bipartisan negotiators have already been taking this task very seriously. The American people need the Senate to continue taking it seriously as well.
Democrats say the work that has been done and is being done is serious, and that the need is serious as well, and that Washington shouldn't be dragging its feet one bit. Here's Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer.
At the moment, we need consent from our Republican colleagues to start the amendment process, and we await their answer. I hope we can use our time in the Senate efficiently. Let's start voting on amendments. The longer it takes to finish the bill, the longer we'll be here.
South Dakota Senator John Thune spoke on the Senate floor, saying this bill cannot be rushed and that it must be thoroughly reviewed and time allowed for any problematic parts of the legislation to be amended as needed. Here is some of what Senator Thune said on the Senate floor. Take a listen.
We need to get this legislation right, and that means giving members ample time to examine the details of the bill. And it means giving members the chance to address any problems in the bill through a meaningful amendment process. We shouldn't sacrifice adequate time on this bill merely because the Democrat leader would like to spend next week jamming a 100% partisan piece of legislation through the United States Senate. Let's honor the bipartisan process that's gotten us this far by finishing this infrastructure bill with a robust bipartisan amendment process.
Senator Bernie Sanders is the chair of the Senate Budget Committee. They are in the midst of working on a $3.5 trillion budget reconciliation package. Senator, thank you for joining us here on KSFY. Of all the issues that this plan touches on, lower drug prices, improvements for health care, tuition aid, more broadband for more rural areas of the country. In your mind, is there one topic out of all of those that rises to the top?
Well, I wouldn't say there's one topic. I would say that the time is long overdue that the United States Congress addressed the pressing needs of working families rather than the wealthy and the powerful. And what we are doing is saying, you know what, the rich are getting richer, and many of them don't pay their fair share of taxes. Let's have them pay their fair share so that we can invest in the needs of working families. That's our children, our elderly. That is affordable housing. That is making community colleges tuition-free. And by the way, Brian, that is addressing the existential threat of climate change, transforming our energy system. And when we do all of that, when we invest in the American people, we create millions of good-paying jobs. In my view, this is the most consequential piece of legislation for working families since FDR in the 1930s.
One of the things that you've talked about, in specific to the current price tag, $3.5 trillion, you've said that people shouldn't necessarily worry about that on the surface because much of this plan will offset itself. Are you saying that if this budget goes forward, that this is a plan that essentially pays as it goes, it pays for itself?
Well, it is a work in progress, and we've got 5 different committees working on it. But this is what I do absolutely believe, that at a time when billionaires in a given year pay nothing in federal income taxes, large profitable corporations like Amazon and many others make billions, pay nothing in federal income tax. When you have a situation where the pharmaceutical industry charges us the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs and Medicare does not negotiate prices with them, if you're asking me, do I think we can fund this proposal in a way that does not raise taxes by 1 nickel for people making $400,000 or less? I absolutely do. We're going to ask the wealthy and large corporations to finally start paying their fair share of taxes so that we can meet the unmet needs of working families and address the existential threat of climate change.
One of the things that opponents of this will say, though, Senator, and they already have, is that to what extent can the government make mandates like the ones you're talking about and still respect the tenets of capitalism?
Look, the ideas that we are talking about exist in many other countries around the world. To talk about transforming our energy system, Brian, is to talk about saving the planet for our children and grandchildren. This is an issue we don't have a choice on. We're going to have to sit down and work with China, work with Russia, work with countries all over the world. You have to do that. You know, the West Coast today is on fire. Drought throughout Europe, Australia on fire. It's going to get worse. You don't have a choice. We got to do it. And anyone who thinks we do not have to do it is being incredibly cruel and irresponsible for future generations. And in terms of the other needs in this bill, you know what? I want a working person, mom and dad,